Okay, well, welcome back. We're going to be working on a scientific illustration next. And so what we need to do is to take the objects that we've thought about as being kind of our collection of things that are related. We want to think about how we can arrange them into a visually pleasing arrangement, as well as thinking about what we want to focus on. So one of the things I first do is just kind of get out my collection, kind of start looking at it, start thinking about like placing it. There's a lot of just play and kind of just thinking about where to place things at first. I like to often find things that are long and linear that I can use to kind of balance things out. Sometimes it's nice not to make things perfectly parallel, but to kind of place things off on their sides. And then just kind of think about how I can overlap and layer things to develop a sense of focal point or a sense of balance. Sometimes objects become kind of overwhelming because they're too similar in size. So like maybe I think, oh, that starfish is too similar, so maybe I want to take out an object so that they don't visually compete too much with each other. But I want to think about like how I can position things, maybe to create a sense of visual movement. But also how can it look somewhat natural, right? Can things go off the page? Does everything have to fit? Kind of incorporate a border here so you can see, thinking about like we would lose part of that image. It's often nice to repeat things over and over again. So if I have similar shells, what can I do if they are like by each other, close to each other, or there's another one somewhere else. But I'm kind of trying to make like a circular pattern that doesn't feel quite like a circle. It's a little bit more closed. You can use little things to kind of help continue the circle. I like to do a lot of kind of like random throwing of things, so there's a sense of irregularity. If it's too precise, it will feel like it's too planned, right? But I like overlapping. I like balancing things out visually, right? Take away some things if it gets too complex, if it gets too overwhelming, right? How can I, isolate and create some sort of circular sort of pattern, right? Once again, I can take things away. And so once I think I like it, right, I can easily take a photo of it, right? Thinking about where I want to put the borders. Probably trying to get things out of the center. So I don't want to center my starfish. I want to move it slightly out of the center. I could also try it from a different angle. So maybe like we've done in some of our other assignments, maybe I want to try it from right? So I'll show you what that looks like. So a lot of times I'll try to take pictures of the same still life from different vantage points, maybe thinking about, once again, at least maybe 4. And I can kind of decide what different parts I want to emphasize. I can show you here some of the ones I've been taking, right? So I can play on things that we've studied before, like foreshortening, different points of view, different angles, right? But notice, once again, trying to create a central point. And so I've done that once, so let's try a different kind of composition, right? I don't have to do just a circular pattern. Maybe this time I want to focus on something that's more linear. So maybe I want to take it from a corner and have the objects kind of cascading down, right? This is probably a good example of how it's too regular. Want to think about spacing, think about overlap. How can things feel linear without necessarily being in a straight line or being equal? Maybe it's time to break out that starfish, or not starfish, that silver dollar. Maybe I want to, nest things. So what happens if I put a shell within a shell, or throw some rocks inside the shell? Right, but I don't want everything to be touching. I don't want everything I don't want everything to be the same space, because then it will feel unnatural. Unless maybe you're doing something that totally is in that natural. Maybe you're looking at your illustration of your place, and maybe you're like super organized at home, and so you want to make sure that it looks like it's super organized to recall the place that you're illustrating. And so once again, look at it maybe through the lens of your camera, right? Think about placement. So once again, I still have my starfish as my focal point here. Let's see if we can get it without a glare. But once again, I would just try it from a few different angles, right? So just like we did before, try it from a bunch of different angles. This one doesn't feel as successful as the other one from different angles, but I'm going to do it anyway because I can learn from my mistakes. And once again, if it feels like your still life is too complicated, like you have a bunch of like action figures or whatnot, it's okay to maybe do fewer things, less things. Composition feels complete and full. So I'm going to go ahead and do my last of my arrangements. So I want you to try at least 3 different arrangements with your objects. Once again, you don't have to use all the same things, but you want to think about what you want to use. I'm going to kind of try to do some sort of zigzag sort of pattern. So I want it to kind of go across the page to create a sense of movement. But I can do some of the same things I did before. So if I like the nesting, I can keep it, right? Learn from things I liked in the past. Can take my time, kind of think about it. I feel like I need something long and linear. Of course, I don't have anything with me right now to do that, so maybe I can fake it with some rocks or whatever. I can always go back into the box and some more things if I need to. It's one of my favorite weathered shells from my trip to North Carolina. All right. So this one I was trying to go for like some sort of curve. I don't really like it because I feel like it's too perfect. So I'm going to like maybe adjust it so that this is a little bit lower than this part over here. And then I would do the same thing, right? I would take pictures of it from some different vantage points. So it's kind of like our little mini sketches here, is that we're going to be taking pictures from different angles to think about what our positioning is going to be before we go to draw it out. And then once you have kind of looked and made several still lifes, like I want you to do at least 3, but if you find that you need to do more, you can obviously do some other arrangements. Like I said, if your objects are too complicated, you can always take out things and do fewer objects. But once again, I still want you to make sure that there's a focal point, there's a sense of movement in the composition. Right? You want it to feel complete. If you were going to do something more simple, right, like what I kind of have set out here, I'd really want to make sure that when I took photos, I was looking through the viewfinder to make sure that it felt like it was kind of close up, that it would fill the page. You wouldn't want it to have lots of empty space. Sorry, as I did that right in the camera. You wouldn't want it to have a lot of empty space where, there'd be dead space on it, so you really want to zero in. Sorry, keep hitting the wrong direction. To close up, make it close up. All right. So once you're done, pick your favorite one and then feel free to go ahead and practice sketching your composition that you've selected in your sketchbook, and then we will move on after we've practiced and start drawing it out on the Good Illustration board.